That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You had us on Wednesday last week. It's Tuesday, crackheads. I mean, we're mixing up the amount of volume you're getting these days. I mean, you're going to have to space it out. It's usually Friday, last week Wednesday, now Tuesday. Whew, that's a lot of crack. I hope you were enjoying it responsibly, as they say. We are still reeling from International Fight Week. The great Ilia Topuria becoming the latest UFC double champ. An amazing knockout victory over Charles Oliveira. And yes, the Uncrowned pound for pound charts are in. The rankings, they're all here. We've all had our say, and we're about to hit you with that knowledge. We've also got news from Ireland. Conor McGregor and his appeal got underway today. And it looks like Khamzat Chimaev is in the United States of America. This is all fantastic stuff. This is all good stuff. Jake Paul, he's ranked as a cruiserweight now. UFC 321 has been announced in Abu Dhabi. There's just so much to talk about, guys. And I'm very happy to say, as always, I'm joined by two bastions of MMA journalism here. The uncrowned, mighty duo of Ben Fowlkes and Chuck Mindenhall. Boys, how are you? How y'all getting on?
That was a depressing rundown, by the way. It's like, Jake Paul, McGregor, pound for pound rankings, which is not Ben's favorite, I'd say. That's not your favorite subject.
I love it.
Otherwise,
very
good.
It. Can't get enough of those pound for pound rankings. We're gonna talk Superman versus Batman after that. It's gonna be a good time.
Rankings are so cool. It's what the kids want. Ben.
Very cool.
It's what gets the blood going these days for the reading population. I think we should do away with these long form features that you two guys specialize in and just do charts. Just rankings. That's all I want from now on. Top 5 feelings I have on the back of a pay-per-view. That's what.
So we're gonna do like Bleacher Report, like 20 years after the fact,
Oh, it's fun. We do have a good time, boys. We should get to the rankings straight away. The pound for pound rankings. I mean, a bit of movement here. On air, Jordan has joined us from Las Vegas, the last of the Mohicans in Las Vegas from the Ariel Helwani show. And what a trip those boys had. I saw them eating that chicken yesterday, and I was thinking about what would I look like if I was stuffing really hot chicken in my face. Not good is the answer. So for that brief moment, I was happy I wasn't there. But for the rest of it, I was very, very jealous, I must say. It looked like a fantastic adventure for all the team. Jordan hanging around, of course, today. He loves us for that. Jordan, can you talk to the people or you can't talk to the people right now? How does that go? He's not talking to me.
He can't even talk to us.
Yeah, he can't even talk to us. So
what kind of psycho?
I can talk.
He can talk? Oh, here we go. Here
Listen
we go.
to this.
Who goes to Vegas for the weekend and then stays until Tuesday?
That's what I was just thinking.
Weekend?
That's a long ass
You wish
trip,
it was
man.
weekend. Tell him how long you've been there, Jordan.
8 days.
8 days.
This is a hellhole.
That's when you're at the pawn shops trying to get rid of shit. Like like, this necklace is worth something,
Are you hiding
Connor
out
at dinner yesterday goes, the guy who hates Vegas the most, here the longest.
Oh man.
At that point, when you leave town, you're gonna have to leave in a hurry, in trouble with some real bad people. That's what happens if you stay in Vegas for that long.
I actually only have 9 fingers now.
Well,
just blink if you're in trouble, Jordan. Oh, we can't see you. Oh, well.
well, hopefully you're not in trouble. Anyway, guys, great show today.
Yo, hit us with the rankings, Jordan. Well, we still have you alive there in Sin City. Oh, what's that? I'll tell you what it is. It's a new man atop the pound for pound rankings.
Yeah.
It's Ilia Topuria. Look at his cheeky little smile there with his 2 belts. Look at that cheeky look at his little face there. Second place,
Can I tell you,
Islam.
every one of you guys who voted for Ilia Topuria as number 1 were like, oh, God, I hope I'm not being an idiot. Every single one of you guys prefaced it like that.
And to be fair, I believe I'm talking to 2 gentlemen right now who did not pick Ilia Topuria as your number 1 fighter.
We've got good sense still, I mean.
Well, the way I go about the pound for pound rankings is Chuck has my proxy.
That's right.
That's
right. This is really behind the curtain, Ben. You sure you want to?
Yeah,
I want to hear this.
I don't love the pound for pound rankings as an exercise, and I also don't feel passionately about the order that people appear in most of the time. So I feel like I tell Chuck, hey, whatever you're doing with your rankings, copy and paste it, put my name on that one, and
I vary
fine
it
with
up
it.
for you. I try to like get into your
Thank
head a
you.
little bit. You know what I mean?
You're like, what would Ben say about this?
You know,
I put Raquel Pennington in one of your rankings like last time, and I was like, wait a minute, she should be gone by now, right? Like she's been gone a minute.
I mean, don't you think though that, like, for one thing, everybody, when it comes to rankings and it comes to any kind of GOAT conversation, we remember whatever we saw last. That occupies a big spot in our mind.
No.
And so you go up a weight division, you beat a guy at a higher division. We just saw that. Then yeah, you're going to be number one pound for pound.
It is
Islam
kinda true.
Makhachev goes out there later and beats Jack
100%.
Della Maddalena, and people are going to be talking about him as pound for pound. Like, that's just how it goes. We all accept that. It's poor guys like Merab and Alexander Pantoja who kind of get stuck down there just because they're staying home in their own weight class. But that's how it works.
I will say this was maybe
3 and 4, respectively 3 and 4.
Yeah,
Sure. Merab and Pantoja.
I will say that the first 4 guys now on our men's rankings are pretty solid. Like that's like that 4 is pretty inarguable, whichever order you want to put them in. But I'm like, those are 4 guys who've really distinguished themselves to belong in the top 4. And then it gets very difficult from there. You know, like it's a lot of like Aspinall. You have him up there, but obviously he's not really fighting a lot, and he didn't get to fight the guy that we wanted to see him fight. But what are you going to do? Drop him out based on that? You know what I mean? So it gets weird after the first 4, but the first 4 are very, very solid right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to Ben's point, like, I do think recency is part of the criteria for the pound for pound rankings. Like, it is actually like right now, who do I think is the best fighter? So of course, naturally, when Ilia goes in there and bombs the head off Charles Oliveira, you know what I mean? You're like, yeah, fuck yeah, he's number 1 in the world right now. I mean, coming out to Antonio Banderas, you know, come on. The guy, it's making me feel a certain way. If you hear that shit at 6 a.m. in Ireland and you're like, holy shit, this is an amazing entrance. That's wild. That does not happen anymore. 15 years in, you couldn't give a fuck what's happening when they're walking to the cage most of the time. This lad whips out a Desperado tune. I nearly shit myself. I was like, God, oh my God, this is what it feels to be young again. Amazing stuff.
It's funny that everybody's basically like, all of us hardcore guys who've been around this game a long time are like, that was revitalizing to watch this guy come in there and suddenly like give a spark of something that we remember from back in the day. You know, like there's something about that performance and the whole setup and that night that it was like, I don't know, it tapped into some genuine, like original source of enthusiasm for the sport for me.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, the thing is too, we don't often see a guy just be exactly who he tells us he is.
True.
And like for him to show up at the weigh-in, at the ceremonial part of the weigh-in, and be standing there with Charles Oliveira, like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what's about to happen to you here. Like, it's already over. You don't know it yet, but
that is so great.
And like, I apologize. Like that
it had to be you. You know, I like you, man.
Yeah,
sorry, it has to be you.
The implication was I had to go up here and beat the hell out of some lightweight. I didn't want it to be you. But they said it had to be you, and so here we are, and I'm sorry. And it's like, that is...
It's a good thing Charles never learned English, though. You know what I'm saying?
It's an incredible amount of, like, we would call it arrogance or hubris if you lose. But when you just keep winning, I don't know. We got to call it something else, because that's just an unbelievable kind of next level confidence to have. And then to go in there, and a part of you is going like, man, the MMA gods can hear you. They can hear you bragging this way.
I know. Exactly right.
But then he goes in there and he just does exactly what he said he was going to do. And you're like, well, what can you say? Except that, like, he knows the future. He knows better than anybody else what's about to happen. He really is a superstar without even really having to tell us he's a superstar, and without the UFC really even putting like any kind of extra special effort into it. Just him showing up seems to be enough. Like, that is something that we have been missing a lot in this.
And he's above like superstition, right? Like some guys, I mean, they'll tell you whatever, but I think there's such a superstition in our sport, especially from people. Like, you can't take anything for granted. The moment you take something for granted in the sport, some chaos happens and you get something else. Look at Cyril Gahn now, possibly getting a shot. When you take for granted that we got Aspinall and Jones, right? Like, you can't take anything for granted. It seems like it's always punished. So to see a guy so casually not worried about the cosmological governors and what they might do to to spite you, and to make it not come to pass. For him to just go out there casually, like, no, we've got an agreement. Me and whatever's going on, we have an agreement, and this is what's going to happen. And then it happens. I mean, it's always the stuff that starts to feel transcendent. You know what I mean? Because you just don't see that kind of thing.
Yeah, and another thing that we don't see a lot of, or we haven't until recently, is people being pushed into the cage for face-offs. Very exciting time for fans.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this. Things are happening. Joshua Van's in there. There's Paddy Pimblett. Dana didn't like it. Dana didn't like it, Chuck. I thought it was a great moment. It also just solves the mathematics we're all doing, right? We're all sitting there going, is it going to be Gaethje? Is it going to be Sarukian?
Yeah.
I feel like you can't really walk it back after that, can you? You can't really have
Well,
stuff.
that's what he hated. I think that's what he hated. Is like that he's a guy who likes to oversee his operation. He doesn't want Joe Rogan going Rogan saying, "Hey man, come on in, Patty. Let's face off," because Dana's the dude, right? Everybody has to kind of get their approval through Dana, and I think, he's got a point. The family's in there and all this stuff. But it was. I don't know how you guys felt about it. I thought that was an incredible moment. I was like, oh, this is beautiful. They're already setting the table so brilliantly for the next fight. I think a lot of people that works the imagination, Paddy being who he is. He's a natural foil in a situation like this. He can bring out dimensions maybe we haven't even seen from Ilia, get his temper going a little bit, which he's been so poised. I think that it's all brilliant, but Dana's kind of sometimes it's weird to watch him rain on the parade a little bit when it's his product. I'm like, man, just embrace it. But I really do believe it's just you overstepped your authority, Joe. You go through me on those kind of things.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. He'd be, especially the older Dana White gets, the stodgier
that's
seems
true.
to become. Just in terms of a fight. Like, he used to be the guy who was like a opposite of somebody like Bob Arum, who was out there as I'm the old boxing promoter telling you how it is, kid, and it's been this way for 50 years and it'll continue to be this way. And Dana White was like the young, brash firebrand, changing things up. And now he's hit a certain point of age and financial success that he's kind of become more of a Bob Arum type himself, where it's just he
irony.
wants to be this certain kind of way, and he doesn't like anybody else going off script and doing anything other than that. Because it was an entertaining moment. If you think that your job is to go out there and show the fans stuff that they can get excited about, then you did it here. And I do think he'd rather just not have the options limited that way. You don't want to see Paddy Pimblett feel like now he's in a position where you got to come to him as the challenger. So I don't think they love that, but it's also if part of the job of every single one of these pay-per-views seems to be to get us excited about a future pay-per-view, which that explains why they're always running ads for the next one during the current one.
That's exactly it.
Then you did it here. You set up what's next. You don't then have to go into this period of chaos and confusion where we all sit around waiting to hear. Usually what we wait to hear is who got the call from the UFC and said yes first, said yes to the date first.
Right.
And here you have something where you're already working a narrative that then people will be interested to see it come to fruition at some point in the future. So I don't see it's a bad thing. I think it's kind of an excuse to be the families were in the cage. It's man, we were letting Brock Lesnar come in there and shove Daniel Cormier. I don't know how concerned we really are for anybody's family as innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire.
Chuck's got a great article out about this whole situation on Uncrowned at the moment. I'm just going to give you a little paragraph from here. Sarukian is a dangerous matchup for Topuria. He's an art house think piece, a more sophisticated experience. Pimblett is a Michael Bay film. He's going to give you crashes, explosions, and comedic one-liners in the most distressing moments. As a natural foil with some bad blood, he's going to shade in parts of Topuria's character that we haven't yet seen. He's going to treat the microphone like a fuse burning down to fight night. That's already
accurate.
begun.
The Michael Bay analogy is definitely accurate because, Paddy Pimblett, he's Bad Boys too, right?
Yes, it is. Yes.
He's out here with the camera doing the slow 360 pan while we're talking about shit just got real. And Arman Sarukian is like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. It's a quietly slow burning kind of
he's the Limley.
Sort of
he's I felt so bad for him though. I was thinking about how would you like to be Sarukian sitting there that night, you're thinking, yeah, man, I can beat this guy. And then in your head, you're saying, okay, we setting this up. And then on there bringing in Paddy in and setting this up. You're like, dude, with my chop liver.
Yeah, you probably got to be watching it and going like, oh, I didn't know you could do that.
I know.
I didn't know you could just walk up there and get in there and make yourself the next contender.
You got to get a seat where you can climb over the partition pretty easily. That's what you got to do.
I also think, though, that like at this point where we are with lightweight, I don't know who is that interested in getting hung up on the rankings in terms of like who deserves to be number one contender next, right? Like, don't we want to see something fun. We want to see like good times happen, especially because it's like Islam leaves the division, leaving it essentially without a champion. And so we have this fight, which kind of felt like it was going to be Ilia Topuria versus TBD. And we were going to just choose somebody from among like a name grab bag of like 3-4 names. We chose Charles Oliveira. He goes in there, beats Charles Oliveira easily, just makes quick work of him. And so now it's not like there's somebody who has to be next. Like Arman Tsarukyan, I think, lost a lot of whatever fan support he might have had, when we were like, all right, like we're gonna let you have a lightweight title shot and then you don't show up for it. And now people are just kind of going like, well, there's history with Paddy and Ilia. Seems like it'd be a fun fight. It's not like anybody feels it would be at this point a miscarriage of justice if Arman Tsarukyan doesn't get his shot in time. Like there's just not like a groundswell of support for that. And so
just Arman and his family, they're like,
right. Yeah. And other than that, people are just like, we want to see a fun, interesting fight.
I agree, man.
That seems like it has some personal stakes, and that seems like it will be an exciting matchup of styles. And Paddy and Ilia checks all those boxes.
Petesy, you've been advocating for this, man. Like you wanted Paddy Pimblett even before Charlie got in there, right? Like you wanted Paddy first.
Oh no,
can't hear you. Are you muted?
Not working.
Well, sorry, it was.
There it is.
I was coughing loudly, and I turned that off for a second, but now I'm back. Speaking of personal stakes. Little quote here from Paddy Pimblett. Very aggressive. Here it is. You don't need to sell that fight. It sells itself. Two people who genuinely dislike each other. You don't really get that. I don't know about that. We haven't seen that since Khabib and McGregor. Two people who actually hate each other because I hate him. I wouldn't even want to finish him.
No, we don't want to go that dark, do we? I mean, let's keep it a little light.
I'd want to finish him with a minute left in the fight after I've elbowed him 700 times. I want to disfigure him. That's what Paddy Pimblett says.
He wants to take away that man's good looks, Ben.
That ain't right.
Handsome man.
That ain't right to destroy something beautiful like that. Although, like you get the same thing from Ilia, and I think this is part of what would be the appeal of the fight is Ilia being like, I did not enjoy having to do that to Charles. I will enjoy doing that to Paddy Pimblett. And you're like, man, if that's how good you are at hurting people when you don't want to, what happens when you really, really want to?
Or does that knock him off his moorings to have like some kind of emotional stake,
But see, that just creates more doubt and questions and anticipation about the fight itself. Whereas if you matched him up against Arman Tsarukyan, you'd have to just be like, hey, Arman has won this series of fights, and therefore that's why we're doing this. And also, we're not even going to try to make sure everybody can spell his name right, like because we think this is just like a next step.
It's like tsunami, You all agree that Gaethje shouldn't be in this. Like nobody else. I feel like it's one of those two guys, right?
But then what do you do?
I don't know. That's a great question. When you go with
one of those guys, Paddy Pimblett, what do you do with the other one?
I mean, I'm not opposed to Tsarukyan and Gaethje. I don't know what you guys think. I would be okay with that.
Why not just have them fight each other if they want to do something? I mean, this is the problem that you get into a lot of times with divisions that have more than one plausible contender next, is because you get a lot of guys where they feel like, hey, especially Arman Tsarukyan, you can see why he'd feel like, hey, I earned a spot. I got here. I don't want to risk that with more and more contender fights. I don't just want to be taking number one contender fights endlessly when I am already the number one contender. I don't want to put that up for grabs. Like, let me just go and get my fight. And so, like, you can understand why he feels that way, but that's why you get so many of these divisions that seem to have sort of like a roadblock at the top, or just like a lot of inactivity at the top, because anybody who's 3 and up just feels like I'm already there. I can only lose that by continuing to fight. And nobody wants to fight down the rankings, and so it's like fewer and fewer fights that even make sense for you. I mean, Justin Gaethje, like, I definitely do feel for him some of the stuff he said about how things have gone between him and the UFC lately, where he says like, "Hey, I was promised these certain kinds of things, like, hey, do this for us, and this will be what comes back." And it seems like he's feeling like the UFC maybe hasn't kept up their end of what he understood that agreement to be. But also at this point, after we saw him go face down in the Max Holloway fight, in the BMF fight, where we love the fight, we're very appreciative of the effort, but also we don't exactly come out of that one being like, he's got to fight for the lightweight title sometime soon. Like,
Yeah.
it would be fun. Like, he brings a certain like excitement and chaos to any of the equations, but doesn't it also seem like, especially the type of fighter Ilia Topuria is, that he'd pick Gaethje apart pretty easily?
Yeah, and also we know. I mean, we kind of know what Gaethje's going to offer. We know his ceiling. I think you're dealing in guys. The reason there's so much imagination surrounding these other guys is because we don't know their ceiling, right? Like, you don't know how far Arman Sarukian can go. You don't know Paddy Pimblett's ceiling yet because he's still on the rise. He's won all of 7 of his fights in the OC. Sometimes, I mean, it's rare to get the scenarios like what we're dealing with Topuria, where you're basically like talking about guys where you're just not seeing them lose, really. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like that's part of it. And with Gaethje, it's almost like, and you hate to say this, but it reminds me a little bit of when the the whole Masvidal, Usman, all the guys in that division were just kind of at the top. You're like, well, I've already kind of seen. We need new blood somewhere in that division. Well, this one, it's all new blood at the top, and then there's a couple of guys like Gaethje that are there. They're intriguing because they always put on good fights, but you kind of know more about Gaethje than you knew these other guys. So I feel like that's why the intrigue is so big for Topuria and these, either Arman or Paddy to step in there against him.
Yeah. And look, they need more than that. Like, I'm looking at the rankings here for that division. The lads who are there have been there for so long. Like, obviously, Islam's gone up, but Oliveira, Gaethje, Holloway, Poirier, Hooker, Gamrot's a new name in the title mix, I guess. Dariush is in the top 10 still.
New guy.
Like, there isn't a lot of guys, right? Fiziev, sorry, Moicano, Chandler, Benoit Saint-Denis, who we all thought was going to be up there, and then Grant Dawson. Like, they need to get those. They need to start turning over some new contenders big time. Basically, what we need to replicate what we saw at welterweight at lightweight. You'd think, right? Like, it does feel a little bit stale. One of the things that was discussed quite a bit last week, was the idea of Topuria fighting in Spain, and Dana White said, we just can't go there at the moment. When you hear that this guy's pulling numbers akin to a Real Madrid Champions League game, Rafael Nadal tennis game, like, this is crazy. This is top tier, the fillet of Spanish sport, I would say. This guy now is like Marca, one of the most celebrated magazines of all time, putting out this kind of stuff. He is in rarefied air there. They have never had this guy. Again, we've gone this far without comparing him to Conor McGregor. I'm about to do it now. He is the Conor McGregor of Spain. There we go. He is making everybody care. People really want to check this out. We looked into it. The great On-Air Jordan even did some background, despite him being now 8 days in Sin City. And he pulled up some great stuff from the BBC, some tweets for us. Basically, a very similar situation occurring around Santiago Bernabeu, where Real Madrid play, as there is in Croke Park in Dublin. And we know Croke Park, Ben thinks it's a fictitious place.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah,
I've heard about it. I've heard so much stuff about it. Never
It's
seen
a Piggly
anybody
Wiggly out
actually
in
go
Dublin.
there.
It's not even a.
But this is the same thing that's happening there. It's a residents association are there, and they kind of make demands on when people can go in and play in that venue.
But
It's such a recurring theme, isn't it? It's like, remember the Dallas Cowboys Stadium forever, and then it was Croke Park. Now we're talking about the Bernabeu. It's like every 5 years we've got like a new fixation.
Well, and I get it to a point, but it's also like we have all sort of like internalized the UFC's own logic that if you go and you do it, it would have to be at a time where you could do it, so it's a prime time pay-per-view back in North America. Which
I haven't. Go ahead.
It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Like, you could do it at other times,
True.
and it seems like we're not willing to take a chance on sacrificing a single pay-per-view dollar for this. You know, if we had it earlier in the day where it would have to air here like in, you know, early afternoon or something like that. Yeah, you might sell fewer pay-per-views, but it'd be an incredible live event viewing experience. Like, I understand why doing it in the middle of the night in Spain so that it could air, you know, 10 p.m. here doesn't seem like a workable solution for a whole lot of people. But like, that's not the only options available. It just depends. Like, do you want to create one of these big moments like that? Like, if you want to have the moment, then you can figure out a way to do it there.
I mean, they could hand out like little earplugs, right? Like to the neighbors. No, but Pizza, you tell me, UFC 93. Remember that back when Irish Hand Grenade was fighting out in Dublin and Hindo, I think, was on that card against Franklin. Wasn't that a pay-per-view that aired here in the States at like 1 p.m.? Do you recall? Like that had to have been a normal time in Ireland, because I remember it was an afternoon affair, and I felt like that was one of the scarring moments for the nah. We're not going to do shows like that.
Yeah, that's true. That did happen, and you're right. It was like our time. It was prime time, our time as opposed to US time. But don't they do these cards in Abu Dhabi all the time at their time? Do you not guys? Are you guys not watching pay per view? So like,
no, I don't pay attention to. No, I'm kidding. They that's the one place, right? Like I feel like that we still get the afternoon card.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Why can't they?
I don't know.
Because do a similar thing.
I mean, again, whenever you're trying to figure out why the UFC does or doesn't do a thing that you can't understand,
it's money, isn't it, Ben?
You should hear the voice in your head going, Monday, 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 Monday. Yeah, that's what it is, right? Because it's just like, oh, why would we do it in somebody else's local time zone? Because they're paying us to. And the issue that you get into with some of these other places is like, yeah, you could go and have a huge event there, but do the local authorities in charge of the purses care enough about bringing it there to pay you just to come put on a very profitable show in their city? And if the answer is no, then they're probably not going to do it. So like, it could be done. Like we were acting like there are like all these insurmountable obstacles to doing it. The fact is that it could absolutely be done. It's just the UFC thinking like it would be easier and make us slightly more money to do it a different way.
I mean, and the environment matters. I mean, when you're talking about McGregor, you think about that Dublin show. I just remember how that felt even watching remotely. You're watching something unfold. You're like, man, this is crazy. The passion that this guy has brought out of his countrymen is absurd. When the UFC first went to Brazil, it was like that. You know, UFC 134. Ben, I was sitting right next to you for that card. And it was like, you know, it was a mad scene. It was like all Brazil against the world, and every one of those guys was getting like a hero's welcome.
Yeah,
and
they were throwing the beers on.
I know, that's what I mean. We're closing every time after a fight. We close our computers. Hope we didn't get
the beers would come raining down from the rafters.
But it's like I just aren't you kind of dying to know like his reception there? Like, look at those shows in France that they were doing. You see the enthusiasm that these people that have been dying to have like a champion or somebody that can get behind, rallying behind their guy. I would love to see it. It's just one of those things as a fan of the sport, you just want to see that, right?
And the difference, right? Like just to stick to this for a second, the difference of going to see Aspinall v Volkov and that card with, I think, was it Pimblett v Levitt was on that card, and Hooker v Arnold Allen, like that 2022 card where it was just the first one after the pandemic, and it was a magic night. And the difference between the atmosphere that night and then the UFC Manchester when it's Leon v Bilal in the middle of the night, like I was there for both of them. It was like, you know, you could just see lads like checking the times for like trains as the main card starts. They're just like, oh, what the fuck, man, 3 hours. Oh, Jesus. You know, and something they were dying for. But you just can't expect an arena full of people who just don't live at those times to be excited about being there at those times. It's not going to happen. The train station after that Manchester card was one of the most fucking depressing places I've ever been in my fucking life. And I've been in some pretty fucking depressing places. Boys,
I'm sure, man.
That was
if they did it at the Burnabout, though, if they really did this, would it not just be, oh my God, they're finally doing something like this?
It'd be so cool.
Because they haven't done this. They just haven't done a big stadium show. They're not. It seems like they really don't want to. I think in some cases they just don't want they want it to be as intimate as they can while they can maximize the dollar. So they don't want like guys sitting a mile away from the action where you can't see the octagon. But if they really did this, it would be like a monumental moment, because we've had these talks about so many different shows that never come to fruition, I feel like it would feel like a groundbreaking event.
Yeah, I also think though part of it at least has to be that they've gotten very used to a controlled and fairly predictable like live event kind of setup. And so if you go and you do something completely different, like in a big stadium like this, then you'd have to figure out like how are we going to do it? Like how are we going to change like our like existing, production outfit to be able to go and do this and maybe do it at different times and all that stuff. And they're such a well-oiled machine at this point where they can roll into town, set up their stuff, broadcast it. It all goes off without a hitch, looks more or less the same as it was when you were in a different city, 3-4 weeks ago, and then you load up the trucks and head to the next place. And it's like, I think that there's a little bit of resistance to just doing something new and different. But then that is part of what would be very exciting about it for us,
right.
the fans.
Yeah, even like Marab was on with Ariel there yesterday, and the conversation came up about like Georgia. When are they going to do Georgia? And the same kind of thing. He's like stumbling around for reasons.
They were
why
just in
can't do
Atlanta.
Georgia.
What's he talking about?
Well, Ariel asked him, and he's kind of stumbling around like, oh, we can't really do that. And then, of course, they'd have to pay for that.
Yeah, that's
like,
really the problem.
Fuck.
I mean, if they went to Azerbaijan, they would definitely go to Georgia. I think if the money's right.
Of course, if the money's right. Onto something completely different. The Conor McGregor appeal got underway in Dublin today. Of course, it was highly publicized that McGregor would appeal this, and about 2 months ago, it came out that he had new witnesses that were going to give evidence, and that could be had they given evidence, that would have been cause for a retrial to some degree. However, today, and I'm reading this from RTE, the national broadcaster over here in Ireland, former MMA fighter Conor McGregor has withdrawn his application to introduce new evidence in his appeal against the finding of a high court jury in a civil trial that he raped Nikita Hand. In an unexpected development just before the hearing was due to start, Mr. McGregor's lawyer told the Court of Appeal that they would be withdrawing the new claims alleging that Miss Hand was assaulted by her then boyfriend on the same day that she met Mr. McGregor. Her lawyers told the court that she was owed an apology. Miss Hand sued Mr. McGregor, alleging she was raped in a hotel in Dublin in December 2018. The jury found in her favour and awarded almost €250,000 in damages. Mr. McGregor is challenging the verdict and wanted to bring in the fresh evidence as part of his appeal. Samantha O'Reilly and her partner Steve Cummins lived opposite Miss Hand and her then boyfriend Stephen Redmond in Drimna in 2018. After Miss Hand won her case, Miss O'Reilly and Mr. Cummins swore affidavits for Mr. McGregor alleging they had seen and heard a row between Miss Hand and Mr. Redmond on the night of 9th December 2018 after Miss Hand had been out with Conor McGregor. They were expected in court to be cross-examined as part of this appeal. Miss Hand was also due to be questioned about their evidence, but before the case started, Mr. McGregor's barrister, Mark Mulholland, told the court that he wanted to withdraw the evidence. He said this was partly on the basis that other supporting evidence they wanted to introduce would not be admissible. Mr. Mulholland said the lawyers had looked at the case holistically and were of the view that there were no corroboration of Miss O'Reilly's evidence and it was not a sustainable ground. So that is ongoing now. They are different grounds for appeal that McGregor's lawyers are looking at. So we will know in the next 2 days as to whether that has been successful. Obviously, a big chunk of that now being taken away due to those witnesses not giving evidence. It will be down to the judge's charge. To the jury, I believe, is one of the issues. The charging sheet, I believe, is one of the other issues. A lot of semantical things going on, but we will keep you up to date as soon as we get a decision one way or the other on that. Lads, this story is not going away, it's fair to say, Ben.
Well, I mean, it seems like it's McGregor's doing that it's not going away to some extent, right? Like he could, this is keeping it alive and keeping it in the headlines. Kind of feels like what we're dealing with here is OJ goes in search of the real killers kind of situation, right? Like we're just, as long as he can keep having some sort of like thing he can point to in terms of deniability, then maybe he thinks that that's a win and it's worth the continued court costs and all this stuff. But it is like, it's just giving fresh headlines to this story that, especially as I come to understand from you, Pete, he seemed like it dominated the Irish news media for a long time there last year. You just a couple weeks ago had a story where you're on tape punching a guy in a nightclub. So you're creating nothing but bad headlines for yourself. And I don't know. I don't know if he really thinks that there's a future where the slate gets kind of wiped clean for him here, but that's hard to imagine.
I mean, and no matter what, Nikita Hand, to be kind of like still dealing in this regard. I mean, and I know, like, obviously, if there was innocence from McGregor's standpoint or any of that stuff, then he's going to go through the proper. He's going to try to show that, but to be Nikita Hand and like to keep dealing in this, man, like it's got to just be so. This is rough. It's what, 7 years since the incident, and you're still dealing in it and still going through these fresh things, and it's just it's weird. And man, like you get into MMA coverage, you don't think that you got to like kind of know. I wish I kind of went to law school to become an effective MMA guy, because it's like I feel like we need to discuss these court things. And law stuff too. It's like just law, like everything that's going on. But I'm with Ben on this. It's just when you're constantly putting negative headlines, it's hard to draw any kind of public sentiment towards your case, in general, because you're out there as a kind of wild man who obviously is not too worried about consequences and whatever you're doing. So it's just anytime these things come up, man, it's just like I guess there's a presumption that Conor is probably guilty, and so you hear the tail ends of these things, and it's just, I guess that's kind of where I'm at on it, and I feel bad for Nikita on this.
Yeah, I mean, and that was a big story as well, that these two witnesses were coming forward. Like I see her counsel are kind of saying this is perjury and stuff like this. I just want to get from this article as well, just to clarify, the case continued based on two main grounds of appeal. Senior counsel Remy Farton raised that the issue of Mr. McGregor's answer to Gardaí, that's the police here, when he was interviewed, the trial heard that he said no comment around 100 times. Mr. Farrell said that this was manifestly prejudicial evidence that should have not been introduced, and the judge's ruling that it was admissible was wrong. Mr. McGregor had the right to silence in Garda police again interviews and a right not to incriminate himself, counsel said. Mr. Farrell, that's his lawyer, also raised the issue of the question asked of the jury on the issue paper. The jurors were asked if Mr. McGregor had assaulted Nikita Hand. He said that the parties in this case had agreed that the issue paper should have specified sexual assault rather than assault. So that is what is being debated and conversed over in Dublin court at the moment, and I think it is scheduled to finish on the 3rd of July. As far as the judge commented today, it is moving a lot quicker because they were to cross-examine those two witnesses, and obviously that was taken off the bill this morning, so that has sped things up quite substantially, I'd imagine. So it could have a decision on this tomorrow, but should definitely have it by the 3rd, as far as I know. And again, we will have a report on that on Uncrowned as soon as we get the information. Now, another thing, completely different, lads. Another man who we were concerned about not getting into the United States. It was Khamzat Chimaev. Lads, look at you. I can see how safe you feel knowing that the middleweight contender, Khamzat Chimaev, is in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Can we play the national anthem? No, we cannot. There it is.
You might want to set that up beforehand, like that.
He's arrived. Look at that beautiful flag. He's arrived in Los Angeles Airport by the looks of things. This is a positive sign in terms of that middleweight division, right? I don't think we were all fully convinced that something wouldn't hit an old hitch before this went down, but the Chicago date looking good, Chuck Mindenhall.
I mean, I was doing our rankings, and I'm like, it's the first thing that comes to your mind. Well, if we get this fight, because he's in our top 10. If we get this fight, and I'd say that this is a very positive sign. I guess these visa issues and the current political climate, like, it's like I assumed that this would happen. I assumed that Dana White wouldn't make the fight, like that the matchmakers wouldn't do this unless they had on pretty good authority that they would be able to. But it is always good. I still feel like there's a little bit of a let's wait and see, because there are still weight cuts and there are still other things that we've seen him struggle with in the past, and so it always feels a little hypothetical. It's weird, like he's lived mostly in a hypothetical kind of thing this whole way, like his whole career. Like us imagining him in a title shot, for instance, it's like we've been doing this for a long time. So it's one of those kind of like keep your fingers crossed, keep your toes crossed, and hopefully we get it. But that's a very good sign, man. The fact that he can be over here in the United States, and the fact that he's able to kind of, because I felt like he was, it's kind of scarce to see him compete at all because there was only a couple of options available to him to fight. And if this really opens up things for him, maybe we see him more often.
Yeah, it's you mentioned like it does feel like some of the magic of Khamzat has been lost, right? Like the guy that we first got, even though he's brilliant, he's this great fighter. We all know that. There was the idea that he couldn't fight outside of the Middle East, but there was a magic that he had. It was lightning in a bottle when he first got here. And as brilliant a fighter as he is, and as unique of a character he is, I just feel like we're constantly trying to get him back there, despite him like being way higher in the rankings than he's ever been. Despite him knocking on the door of this title, like lots of people are like he's gonna beat the shit out of DDP. We already discussed how we felt about that. We will return to that in a moment. But has there been something lost, Ben, with Khamzat Chimaev? Like the I felt there was a magic around him, like not quite what Topuria has now because he's like a double champion, but he had that John Jones shit when John Jones just showed up and he's spinning elbow and these Jake O'Brien and lads like that. Like he kind of had that thing, and I don't know if he has it now.
Well, I think what happened was that at a point it kind of veered into self-parody because there were these years where it seemed like whoever would win a fight, Khamzat would be on Twitter being like, "I'll smash this person." And at first people were like, yeah, okay, that would be interesting. We would like to see if you're right about that. And then it got to a point where people, like that hilarious aside from Robert Whittaker before they actually fight, where he was like, Khamzat was telling me he'll smash me, and I was like, where can you even get in for us to fight? Like like from a practical standpoint, it got kind of ridiculous at a certain point. And I also think that fight with Kamaru Usman, even though he won it, a lot of the air kind of came out of the balloon there when we saw just sort of how he looked in that fight, especially the circumstances. I think that we expected, okay, he should cruise here, and he really didn't. And so I think that now we're getting back to the point where we're like, okay, we can work ourselves back up to that hype level again. It'll take a little bit of time, but I think as this fight gets closer, people are going to get excited about it, both because it's a really interesting style matchup for DDP to have, but also just because, like, if you think about if DDP were to win this, if he goes out there, like, you'd have to take a step back and look at the last like year plus of his career and be like, holy shit, did this guy who we all kind of still regard as not that good, did he just become one of the greatest middleweights of all time? And I think if he were to beat Khamzat Chimaev, you'd kind of have to say yes at this point, wouldn't you?
That's crazy to even contemplate. But I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right, man. Like he defaults back to like sleeping on him. I don't know why. I don't know. Every time he fights, you're like, oh man, we got to like give this guy his respect because you see what he does. And then we just go back to sleeping on him. And it must be some original idea of how he thought he was more reckless. He looks
awkward, right?
He does look awkward, But I mean, just given the resume and what he's been able to put together, man, that's saying something. But to go back real quick to your Khamzat thing, I mean, Petesy, you tell me, like it's you watch him go through Robert Whittaker like he did, break his jaw up like that. Like to me, that was like, okay, wait. Now, if we lost a lot of the air in the balloon, that puts some back in it for me. I was like, okay, this guy. But it was always the kind of more the red flag issues. It was always, like I was saying, the hypotheticals. You're like, is he going to be able to fight the guys that he needs to fight? Is he going to be able to do this? Can the UFC trust him to be in a championship fight? But I feel like all of that. We'll see how it looks on Fight Night, but if he goes through DDP, don't you feel like he would be 100% restored within that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think Ben and you made some good points there, like in terms of like this is his opportunity. We could be really fucking excited after this fight, if he goes in there and he does that. And I didn't think in a month of Sundays he was going to do that to Robert Whittaker. I can remember watching it the next day and being shocked still. You're like, oh, what the fuck? Even though you'd seen it the day before, like, oh, I can't believe this.
Nasty.
Yeah, it was crazy, but it's a really interesting fight. It's what maybe I'm being too critical of Khamzat to say he's completely lost the magic. I was probably a bit too overzealous with that statement, but it's.
You think Nate Diaz dodged the biggest bullet ever? It was like not
my
having to
God.
fight.
Oh
him in
yeah,
that.
no, the way that worked out couldn't have gone better for Nate,
I
because
know,
the
man.
UFC were trying to do the thing where you're like, okay, you're leaving. All right, let us get you absolutely trashed on the way out the door
true,
by this
man.
guy that we're excited about, and then the card has to get reshuffled at the last minute, and they end up having to accidentally go, okay, here's strangely a winnable fight for you that you can go out like flexing and mean
That's still
mugging and ride off into the sunset with your earning potential still intact. Like that was an incredible turn of events for him. And as far as like Khamzat with his visa issues and stuff, like let's be real, that all got sorted out on election night
Yep.
in America.
Yeah.
As soon as Donald Trump was elected, then I mean, and this should be for fight fans, this should be at least some perks of the trade-off. The downside is the UFC is going to make you sit through a Republican Party roll call for at every single pay-per-view at this point.
The throwing up
And
gang signs.
Oh my
we're
God.
we're gonna be out here forced to watch as like an agriculture secretary acts like they're David Spade at a UFC event. That's the downside. The upside is that now the UFC president, when he needs to get a fighter into the country so that we can make our title fight go off, can just pick up the phone and make a call, and it's sort of like a rubber stamp for something like that. So it's like, yeah, that's where we are right now in the sport. But at least, at least we get the fights.
Chimaev doesn't want any part of this. He doesn't like being affiliated to political things
No,
at all, man. So this
that's
should
not
be
his thing.
This would be new. This would be novel.
Do you know what? Like, just as you're saying that, I don't think there's a single Irish politician you could put up on a big screen here and have anyone clap in this country. Not one. Not
That's the
one
way it
you
should
could put
be.
up.
That we should.
It's like,
No one should like any of these people.
They're just going up. Everyone's
Well, I mean, Trump's in a safe place when he comes to a UFC fight, you know?
It is.
yeah. It's funny, man. Just before we move on, am I crazy? Like, were we all really high on DDP when this fight got announced? Were we not all like, they're fucking underestimating our boy? What the fuck is going on here? Were we like did I go into the head, all of us, and we were like, yeah, we'd pick DDP right now, or am I going fucking crazy here?
Well, I think that it was that he, as soon as it was announced, he was immediately the underdog, right?
A big underdog too.
And people kind of went like, "We're doing it again. We're just doing the thing that we keep doing with this guy, where he'll win a fight, and then we'll go, okay, but the next one you will surely lose." And that just feels like that same pattern all over again. And yet, when I'm trying to sit there and be honest with myself, and you're like, it really depends what kind of fight you get. Because if you get a DDP fight, DDP wins it. And if you get a Khamzat fight, then Khamzat wins it. Like, if he can just drag you down and get you into that spin cycle like he did to Robert Whittaker, then you got to think he probably wins it. The thing that we have yet to see, I think, is, I still say, while I was wrong about what was going to happen in the Khamzat Robert Whittaker fight, I was almost right, because I was like, if Robert Whittaker could just get through the first round,
Right.
it'll be a different fight. Turns out he could not get through the first round, but I still might have been right.
Let's see what you're going for there.
I like to think that you were right had he got to that second round.
Yeah.
If I had
don't
bet, a lot of money that Oklahoma City was going to win the championship, I'd be rich right now. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Oh my God.
No, but I do think you're going to have to kill DDP. Like, he's one of those guys, and he almost comes to life. He reminds me a little bit of, like, we've seen guys like that in the past. You get hit a couple times and then they kind of activate like before your eyes, and they start becoming like a beast in there. Like, he's kind of one of those guys. So if Chimaev isn't able, this is very similar to what you're talking about. If he's not able to kind of set a tone or snatch that fight early, it seems like it would favor DDP if it keeps going, right? Like, it just seems like it would become his fight. He's shown that, like, he gets better as a fight goes on sometimes.
Imagine
and also
makes
we've seen that
cry.
Khamzat will brawl once he gets into those
True.
later rounds. If he can't just like manhandle you wrestling wise, he will go out there and brawl, and I just don't think you want to do that with DDP.
No, man. No. It's gonna be, he's so low key savage at shit talking as well, DDP. I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say. Can he make this man cry? He has
That's
made
the other
so many
thing.
cry.
Yeah. Like, he's kind of subtly one of the best shit talkers there is, right? Like, he's very psychological with these guys. That'd be interesting, That's a component to this fight, which should be fun.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's kind of like a principal shit talking you. That's what I always think. It's like people cannot believe he's saying. They're just like, what the fuck was that? I was not ready for that today. My father? What the fuck? Lads, we have Abu Dhabi. We mentioned it earlier. There's another card happening in Abu Dhabi. Yeah, it's UFC 321. It's UFC 321. Look at that beautiful city. It didn't look like that when I was there.
Now they keep building it.
Up. That is crazy what's after happening over there.
That might be Chicago. I'm not sure. They might have gotten that mixed up.
Just throw a few new buildings in there. I don't fucking know. Yaz Island. I was there all the way back in 2019 for Habib v Poirier, and it has come on leaps and bounds based on that image we just saw there. And fair play to Abu Dhabi for that.
Yeah, it is just so I understand. Back then it was Yaz Island, and then for a time it became Fight Island.
That's right.
Now it's back to Yaz Island again,
and it's not an island.
Let's just get that straight, you know.
Yeah, more like a peninsula, I suppose, or something. I don't know.
Fighting over there is kind of like, you know, for Makhachev at this point is like Billy Joel playing at MSG, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it just seems like no matter any time they're going to go there, it's like, well, we need our headliner. Where are you at, Islam?
No, like seriously, dude. Like I've mentioned this before. Like Habib at that time, he was like the king of Abu Dhabi. Like the way he was doing different shit than every other fighter. He decided they weren't going to have a press conference one of the days. All of us traveling across the fucking globe to see this, and he just was like, "No, we're not going to do the press conference." And I was there with, thank God, Casey and Esther, because you know they're OGs. They can put their foot down and be like, "What the fuck is going on here? We are here to hear this man talk." And then he was like, "Gonna do it 10 p.m. local time. How does that fucking suit you?" And I will speak for 10 minutes and leave.
Oh my
And
God.
we're like, fair enough, mate. That's class. He was staying in some
He was
palace.
a dictator both in and outside of that octagon.
Yeah, it was fucking crazy. It was a crazy event to be at. That was the one with the tent, and I was on the taxi on the way, and there's this half-built stadium, amazing looking stadium. And I'm like, the taxi man, what's that there? And he goes, "Oh, that was the second time we tried to build it." I was like, "Oh, interesting."
So weird, man.
Take me to my tent.
Was Ferrari World already a thing back then?
Ferrari World was a thing. I believe Casey
okay.
went there on the Sunday,
Wow.
or to the water park. That's where Casey went, of course.
Oh, we can go down the slide and come out the mouth of the Cobra. How many shots did we see of that when they were showing off those? Like where it was just like, "Hey, come to Fight Island."
I know.
And
I remember Brett Okamoto was out on like a water ski out in the like with the water there, like spraying water. I was like, "What is
This is
going on?
truly
It's like a
magical.
fantasy island, you know."
I just couldn't go outside because I'm too pasty.
They needed Henry Cejudo tugging on Dana White's sleeve, going, "Hey, boss, the plane."
that reference is not going to work for a lot of this audience, Chuck. People are too old, too young for that one.
Alshani was staying down in the hotel, like say like next door neighbor away from me, and I'd go over to him at night, but it was a 3-minute walk, and I'd have a shower, I'd be in fresh clothes. By the time I got to the door of his apartment, his hotel building, I'd be just covered completely in sweat. Everything stuck to me. I'd just be like, "What the fuck is this?" I've never known a heat like it. It was absolutely crazy. But Abu Dhabi, great spot. You saw the image. It looks really nice. October 25th, it's going down. Are we fairly confident this will be JDM v Islam, lads? I mean,
Gotta be, right?
Yeah.
It has to be. I feel like that's what we're talking about, like our designated home field for Islam.
is JDM going to stay in a palace? That's what I want to know.
I mean, he'd better. Like that's if I'm going over there as champion, as defending champion, yeah, give me my palace. Here's the thing that like this is some of the stuff that would probably make me nervous if I'm somebody like Arman Sarukian waiting around for my lightweight title shot. I just watched Paddy get in there and kind of claim dibs. Everybody's talking about him. And then I'm going like, all right, so Islam Makhachev going to go up and going to have his welterweight title fight probably in the fall. If he wins or loses, you could see there being a big push for him versus Ilia, especially,
That's a great point.
By then we're looking at doing like Ilia versus Paddy in a reasonable time. Like you could wind up sitting here like early next year where it's just like Ilia versus Islam is the only fight anybody wants to see. Nobody's trying to hear about a #1 contender at lightweight after that. Like that you could easily just get passed over for an entire year.
Do you think Islam looks at this Ilia Topuria like ascendance, sees that big moment and is like, man, You know what I mean? Like as a competitor, I could have. That's the guy's like now he's got all the juice, right? Like he's got all the juice, but he could have taken that away from him right then and there, right? Like he did. He couldn't have. He could have prevented him from even getting this moment, like where he's like now getting the coronation. You know,
he doesn't really seem that concerned with anything. That is like
that's a good point.
That's been the surprising part to me, because it just seems like with Ilia coming up, you would have thought he'd look at this fight and see the huge super fight potential. Being the defending champion and therefore getting points on the pay-per-view, he would have seen this as a big financial windfall for me, even just to go in there and do that fight, regardless of how it goes. And instead to go up and wait, like this will definitely be just not as big a fight as him versus Ilia on International Fight Week would have been. Like I think it'll still be, people will be interested in this fight, but it just won't have that sort of magnitude. And Ilia's take on it was that Islam is just basically doing the same thing I'm doing. He doesn't want to keep making 155. Maybe there's, I think, also some part of it that's like, hey, how do you stop just being Habib's friend in the eyes of MMA fans? Go up a division, do something he never did, win a second title. And that maybe thinking if Ilia becomes lightweight champ, that fight will be there in the future. And it very well could be.
Yeah. So you don't think, you made a great case for like how much John Jones cared, in terms of how we feel about him and everything like that. You don't think
he could care less, but he doesn't. But he doesn't.
but you don't think he's looking at like, is Ilia the pound for pound guy? And he's like, fuck this. You don't think there's any part of him that's like, fuck them. What the fuck?
I don't know. I think that mostly he's just sort of like got it in his head what he's going to do. I think that part of it was also waiting around to see what would happen with Bilal. And with Bilal kind of out of the way, it made it feel like that decision was easy for him because it kind of already decided that, right? Like, and so going up and wait there and just feeling like, all right, it maybe doesn't hurt that you look and see the champion of the division right now is a guy who, at least so far, does not seem like one of the all-time undethronable greats of the division. Like I could probably go up there and get that belt, add that to the trophy case. But it also just doesn't seem like Islam, whenever you talk to him, it just always seems like, for one, he has a better sense of humor than you expect, but also that he's just like, is pretty nonplussed by kind of all of this. He just does not seem that concerned.
No, he's definitely not debating all the things we're debating. Like he's just like, whatever, man.
Yeah, we have just now put more thought into it than he did.
Right, well, we've got to see what's going to happen on October 25th in Abu Dhabi. We're all buzzing for it here. Sean Strickland, though, lads, I'm sure you've seen this. All of the crew, including I don't know, was On Air Jordan there as well? Were you at Tough Enough On Air Jordan?
He checked out a little while ago.
He was not. No. I mean, what the?
He was working.
This is bullshit. I mean, you went to Sin City to do what? Like, you don't even go and watch Tough Enough and see Sean Strickland jump into the cage with a very strange walk and then hit this guy Lewis.
Crotch chop him at your own peril, right? Like...
What happened, right? Can we just go back to that 1 second? I think this is a Croc issue. I've watched this quite a few times. I think he's not in sports mode. Yeah, I don't think he's in sports mode.
He's in chill mode. He's got his Crocs in chill mode.
Yeah.
If you can, Jordan, just take us back to the start of that video to see this walk. I'm pretty sure it's a Croc. It's going to loop. Okay. Just get ready for this, guys. Watch Sean Strickland as he enters here. It's a Croc situation.
Okay.
Here we go.
You're talking like a guy who knows what a Croc situation can do.
I've seen my dad mess up his Crocs a few times, and it looks a lot like this before he hits me a few slaps. Now watch.
Here he comes. Here he comes.
It's a problem. There is a problem there.
There it is.
I think he's in like old school flip flops, right? And like
he's got dongs.
Yeah, maybe
slaps.
I'm
very
well aware.
I think he kicks him off at some point. Like, and that's also the ease with which he kicks him off while he's getting ready to throw punches tells you that's maybe not the first time he's done that.
What the hell's Curtis doing? Like he's just like he's over there like kind of like
Curtis seemed like he was like he was trying to like kind of big brother the guy and get in his ear and talk to him.
I like how the dude's just like whatever,
inappropriate behavior. Yeah, well, to me,
he doesn't give a fuck. He does not give a fuck. He doesn't care.
Well, especially like I heard him like the comments he made, I think to like Mike Heck, where at an MMA fight where he was just sort of like, hey, they were talking shit to me during the fight. I'm talking some shit back to them. I win the fight. I get to have my moment there. Like it's a, kind of a classic DX.
For sure.
Like if you're a man who grew up within a certain span of years in America, that for some reason that's just in you as like that's the first thing you think to do when you have had a moment of triumph. I've been to a steakhouse in Iowa where they put up pictures up on the wall of people who have like eaten this giant steak that's like a standing challenge to people. More than
ouncer.
one of the people is standing there in the parking lot, boom, with a DX chop as their celebration after they have eaten like a 70-ounce steak or something.
Legends.
So
After
it's
they're
just
being
like,
rushed to the hospital, they're like going to.
it's just the thing a lot of people think to do, and so
Yeah.
it seems like that's what he's doing there, and that does seem like an overreaction to that. But it also it's like, isn't it funny how when he is not the one fighting, when he's like talking, when he's sparring YouTube influencers, when he's storming the cage and he's not supposed to be there, then Sean Strickland is the guy he acts like he is, that he tells us he is where he's just like an uncontrollable savage. And then when it's his own fights, then he is
Very
like
restrained.
a very careful tactician.
Very triggered, like very holstered. I mean, you kind of like everything's being measured, but he's ready to throw hands at the drop of a hat, man.
As long as it's
Outside
not
of it.
his fight, like as long as he's not supposed to be there, really ready to throw down.
You see something. I know it's not in the UFC, but it's there in this big international fight week, kind of tied in, right? Like, but then I remember, you always think back to the Paul Daly thing, where I know it's more of a sucker punch when he like hits Koscheck and Dana White after. I just remember how adamant he was. You hit somebody after the fight, and you're done, that sort of thing. And then you get to this kind of thing, which is just the next level. Because if that was more of a like a crime of passion or something, like this would be premeditated. Like he comes in, like he storms in the whole way, like he's gonna, he knows exactly what he's going to do, but nothing will come of it because this is what Sean Strickland is. Somehow we've accepted him on these crazy terms. We've seen it a bunch, and nobody's going to do anything about it.
Well, also the UFC, if they've learned anything, they've learned not to make those kind of statements. Dana White has learned not to make those kind of statements anymore. Like, if you do this, then this happens, because then people will expect you to stick to it, and there will come a time when it happens with somebody you don't want to stick to it with. Sometimes that somebody might be yourself, and you don't want to have your hands tied, and so they'll just.
Was it Miguel Torres? Like all these guys, the original guys
Miguel
who get like
Torres,
they have to learn the lesson the hard way, right? They're the guys who like get cut or whatever, and then later on everybody gets by with it, and they're like, wait.
Yeah, I mean, Jason High lightly shoved a ref after he had been like concussed, and
right.
Dana White said he didn't even need to see the footage to decide that guy was cut.
That's right. God, I forgot about that one.
I saw Hernandez. His quote was I think it was to Mike Heck as well, because it was on MMA Fighting, and they asked him like, what should happen. He was like, oh, nothing. No, I quite like Sean.
Yeah,
I quite like him.
He's played it all perfectly. I mean, the dude got a name overnight.
Yeah. He was on Ariel. Ariel did an impromptu
Yeah.
interview with him. Everything like this. It's crazy. I know. I can't see, like, you guys will know better than me. I can't see NAC kind of dragging him through the coals on this. Can you?
Well, I mean, they will look for any opportunity to find somebody. They love to take somebody's money away. So like I could see them doing something like that, where it's just like a $2,500 fine for Sean Strickland or something. But I don't think
they'll be like, you're suspended. Let's see, how many days was it since the incident? 25 days. You're suspended 25 days retrospect. I'm like,
yes, they love that.
So now you're good again.
Lads, Jake Paul is a ranked cruiserweight. He had a win at the weekend over Chavez Jr.
Did you guys watch that fight?
I did not see the fight. I saw Ariel in there in a nice suit, but I was at his wedding. Obviously, I didn't get to catch up. They wanted a few quid off me as well, boys, and I was thinking, tough to pay the few quid when I know the result of the fight. It's tough. 25 snots.
25 of those snots. Wow.
I'm not giving 25 snots when I know the result. I'm sorry, all right? You know what I mean? It's tough. I didn't get to see it. Did any of you go watch it?
Well, I was at the Wu-Tang concert in Seattle. I saw some clips afterwards, and just seemed like, all right, the Jake Paul boxing thing seems like, haven't we learned his stuff doesn't really work on boxing people as well as it works on us MMA people. Like he
That's
caught
true.
lightning in a bottle with the Tyson thing just because it's Tyson and everybody is interested in what Mike Tyson does. And yet a lot of the general sports public has not been paying enough attention to realize that Tyson's like 60 years old. They still think he's Mike Tyson. So like you can get a lot of people with that. But as far as just like trolling your way to views, that worked so much better on MMA people when you were doing it against like aging MMA guys. And every time he's tried to do it against like handpicked boxing opponents, it just hasn't gone nearly as well in one way or another.
You're getting
Yeah,
very
I didn't
close to
have
being
I did not
sued,
have
boys.
big interest. Yeah, I mean, watch what
Okay.
you say, Ben.
Yeah, Pierce Morgan's getting sued. Ben Folks getting sued. If you keep this up, okay?
Man, people have a weird idea of what you could sue people for. Like it's just if somebody watched your fight and they thought it sucked, they could say it sucked. You can't sue them for that.
Yeah,
I just want to say, if you're watching Jake, I thought it was a great fight, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Okay,
I didn't think it was fixed. I just thought that the outcome was already determined.
here it comes. Here's a tweet on air. George just put up, after years of letting it slide as just haters being haters, Ben. I have asked my team to vigorously go after anyone, Ben, who makes up lies, Ben, about my boxing career. Ben, expect to get served. I'm not going to call you a pig, Ben. I'm sorry. Expect to get served, you pigs. That's too far. I'm not going to say
That's
Ben
too
there.
far.
I mean, the thing is, sometimes do you wonder, has Jake Paul bought too much into the Jake Paul gimmick? Because I feel like
Definitely more than the rest of us. He has.
well, it just feels like, especially when talking about his boxing career, everybody else still seems to be kind of being like, all right, hey, he's good for him, I guess, getting paid and making a whole thing out of this. And I do have to say, you got to give him his respect because he wasn't just like an influencer who jumped into boxing, made a quick payday, and then moved on to the next thing. Like, he really wanted to become a boxer. And he's really been after it, like for years, putting in the work. And you've seen him get better. He's developed some real skill at it. But I also feel like maybe he genuinely believes he is like a world championship level boxer. Just
Yeah.
like I think he's maybe believed the hype a little bit. And so now when somebody is like, Jake Paul is doing the thing where he picks an opponent he knows he can beat, goes out there, beats them, and then acts like, he's the champion of the world. Like, he's like, I can't believe these people would tell these lies. And it's like, I feel that people are giving you a pretty good amount of respect for it. But also, like, let's be reasonable. Let's
Yeah.
not get completely carried away.
I mean, I'd only be interested at this point. I think if he fights a legit boxer who is still kind of nearish to his prime, like nearish at least to his vitality, if he does that, maybe there would be a because you're like, what we're just spinning our wheels at this point. Like, what are you going to learn from something like this? Nothing, so if he's gonna take it seriously, if he's gonna project that he's gonna take it seriously, it's got to be something like that eventually. He's too high profile to do the traditional thing, especially from where he started. You can't just beat a bunch of cans. Nobody will care. He's calling out guys like he's combining spectacle to sport, consciously doing that. So if you're going to do that, you got to throw doubt now into the occasion, not be so handpicked. Get a guy who actually should beat you, like where you're the underdog, right? That's the only way that this would work.
Yeah, you got to keep like cranking up the stakes somehow. And he hasn't really been able to do it. And he did it for a while. Like he did it really well, where you go like from Ben Askren to Tyron Woodley to Anderson
Yeah.
Silva.
Yeah.
And people were going like, all right, it does seem like there's a forward progression happening here to some extent. And not
Especially with us
boxing,
MMA guys,
Yes. And
Yeah.
and in boxing, it's just not as easy to do that, and also not as easy to get the fans like fired up about that, where it's like you show up and be like, I'm gonna beat one of your old heroes or a guy that maybe was never even a hero of yours, and they kind of go, fine, let us know how it goes.
I expect him to fight a Klitschko brother next.
I'd fucking watch the Till fight. I'll be honest. I'd
Which
be
one?
like straight in there going Darren Till. If he fought Till, I'd be into it. I think I'm alone in that basically on this
Yeah,
panel.
I was going to say you might be alone there.
I think I would watch it. I don't know. It's fucking Till just seems to be. I don't know. He was a guy that just never really hit the level that we all anticipated to him. And I know it's very hard to base how he would get on in that fight. On his fight against Darren Stewart, which Ben covered, of course, diligently a few weeks back, and Anthony Pretty Boy Taylor. But I think it's something. At least we fucking know the guy. You know what I mean? Gonna talk some sweet shit. Like, look, I'm just a YouTuber at the end of the day, guys. I just want guys talking shit, and then I'll get excited for it. That's what I'm into. Speaking of talking shit, no, I have no segue there. Ben, you were at the Wu-Tang Clan as you mentioned there. I didn't have anything. I thought I was gonna get something there.
You thought he would subconsciously connect something like.
Yeah, no, it didn't happen. You and Chad, the co-main event crew, up in Seattle. There, up in Seattle. Does that work?
Over in Seattle, sure.
Over in Seattle, yeah.
He's pretty far up there, Pete. Look at where Montana's based.
I see the mountains.
It's all over from there, unless he's going to Canada, right?
Yeah, look beautiful up there. But tell me, how was the Wu-Tang? And was it a get together of co-main event people? Because I saw several pictures with a number of people. It wasn't just you and Chad Dundas.
Well, it was just the two of us who went to the concert. We took a CME field trip out there, but we met up with some of our longtime listeners and friends, had a nice dinner, got out on the town a little bit in Seattle. It was fun. Wu-Tang, they know what you're there for. They know that you're there to hear the hits. They know you're there to hear, Method Man and the son of the old dirty bastard, the YDB. He came out and did all ODB's parts and frankly injected a needed boost of youthful enthusiasm into the thing. It is interesting though when you go to a concert like this and you kind of look around and you're like, oh, okay, so we're all old. Like if we came to see the Wu-Tang, like we're all old. We all had this album on tape, like that's just a reality looking around the crowd. But it was a great time. I'm glad that we went.
Yeah, it
was Old Dirty Bastard's son called Young Dirty Bastard. What's he go by? It is Young Dirty Bastard.
They just said the YDB. Other than that, I don't know. Does his hair the same? It's a very animated stage presence the same? But they also that's what you need. Is like if you've got a crew of a bunch of like 50-something-year-old rappers, you do need a young man with a little hip mobility still, a guy who can still bend his knees. Although Method Man at one point, he's out here like in a tank top, he's flexing, he's showing off a region where there are almost some abs, and pointing out that he's like 54 years old or whatever it is. And so like basically saying like, don't I still look like I'm in pretty good shape for a 50-something-year-old man? And at that point, Chad Dundas leaned over to me and was just like, yeah, all right. And it's like, that's about the best you could say there. Yeah, sure, okay.
He was like a Division I lacrosse player, do you know that?
Method Man?
METHOD man. Yes, he was. He was a Division I lacrosse player, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But anyway, who cares, right? Lads, our fearless leader, Ariel Helwani, is from the great nation of Canada. And it is, if my sources are correct, it is Canada Day today. What does that mean, you say? I don't really know. But I love Canada and I love Canadian people. My Uncle Paddy lives in Canada and we love you, Uncle Whacker. He's over there. My Auntie Helen, hello. My cousins Tara and Tracy, hello to you too. Canada Day. Have a wonderful day.
Me and Ben have some good memories up in Canada. Remember when we were in Vancouver and we were this is one of the greatest things. I still tell people about this. This is back when cell phones were kind of, I guess, still new, like where people were like, they were still getting used to all the functions of the cell phone and all of its many, how it's going to take over our lives. And we would go up to people and Ben would say, hey, would you mind taking a picture of me and my friend? And we wouldn't give them a phone. They would just use their own phones. Like, he would wait for them to use their own phone to take a picture. And then we were like, thanks so much. And then we'd walk away. And we must have done this 50 times that night. That was so funny.
It was great. And people are just especially like Canadians, they're very nice. They're very polite. I love Canada. I love going there.
Oh,
it's
that
always,
was so
always
funny.
fun. And so, yeah, it would be like they didn't want to be like, no, this is stupid. Why would I want a picture of you two idiots on my phone? They would just do it.
Oh, sure.
And
they just took out their phone. Took a photo of us.
We could walk. I don't know. Do they have to have their Canada Day so close to our 4th of July? That feels like because it's like, okay, you got your Thanksgiving before our Thanksgiving, kind of getting in there first. And then you got to have like your day come like before our like celebration of like America Day. Like it kind of feels at that point like they're messing with us.
I never trusted them, man.
But still.
I've never been to Canada, but you're making me want to go a lot.
Oh, it's great. It's a great country.
Sounds fantastic. Lads, next week, I will be in studio for the Craic. That will be Friday. We're back to normal, so make sure you are prepared for your withdrawals. It's going to be 9 days, so you're gonna be you're gonna be fiending for some crack by the time Friday comes around. But I'll be in studio from Monday next week, so at least you'll get a little dose. Very excited. It's Katie Taylor Fight Week. Last time we were there for that, it's like it's kind of like St. Patrick's Day over there when she fights. I can remember walking through Midtown and it was just Irish people in various states of intoxication, just spread out all over Midtown to the point where I was like, I'm embarrassed for us. But like, they had a great time. It should be a great thing. Funny that Katie Taylor's into none of that shit as well. Like, she doesn't drink, none of that stuff. She would definitely not get involved in a session that all these people are on while they celebrate her. But it's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to see it. It's a big deal over here. It's going to be a big deal over there. And we're very, very excited about that. Enjoy Independence Day, guys. That's Friday this week, right?
Yes, it is.
What do you do on Independence Day?
Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I am taking my children up to a lakeside cabin where we just go and, play on the water, grill some hot dogs, make some s'mores. The problem with Montana's 4th of July thing is that we have a few places that will do fireworks, but Montana in the summer, it doesn't really get dark until like 10 o'clock at night. And so for like the kids, my kids have seen maybe like 2 4th of July fireworks because they just can't stay up late enough for it. It's got to be like 10:30 or so before anybody even thinks to start fireworks. And every year they say they're going to make it. They say they're going to stay up, and they almost never do. And so it's like that part of 4th of July just doesn't quite happen the same for us. We're too far north.
God damn. Sounds good.
My son already saw the fireworks display. He stayed up for the Ilia Topuria fight, so we've already taken that.
Love that callback. Lads, I absolutely love you. Congratulations to all you listeners getting us on a Tuesday. What, you lucky motherfuckers. Maybe this will happen again. I don't know. They tell me to schedule very late. I just stay up in this room. I wait for the camera to come on. They're like, you're on. So I'll be ready next time. Anyway, thank you all. Ilia Topuria, #1 pound-for-pound fighter on the Uncrowned list. Lots to come. Lots of stuff. Get ready for it. It's coming. Happy 4th of July. Happy Canada Day. We love you very much. From me, Ben, Chuck, Oscar Losef, On Air Jordan, everyone here. We love you lots. Have a fantastic week.